Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Parul Zaveri.
Thank you, IDAC. Thank you, Karishma, for pursuing me to come and do this presentation. I know my apologies that I missed doing this in Rajkot, and this was my promise to her that whatever happens, I'll come. And there were lots of upheavals that happened in between, but she pursued and it prevailed. Her pursuance prevailed. And thank you very much to all of you for being here. And Anupama, you gave a wonderful talk. It was seeing your work after a long time, have seen your work earlier when you were at Auroville, but seeing what else you have been doing, it's very encouraging. See, why have we reached the stage that we have reached? Part of those questions that she has raised, probably I have the answers to. Because there was planned obsolescence. That's why we have reached the stage that we have reached. Okay. Why is now the talk of sustainability? Because we have become unsustainable. And what made us so? Planned obsolescence, light bulb conspiracy had a great role to play in that, and advent of modernization, industrialization, and globalization. In 1920 onwards, the planned obsolescence came into being. Can you hear me? Because my mic is going up and down. The light bulb conspiracy is something that, can you imagine that the bulb that was invented then, almost 100 years ago, can still be working without being fused? Can you believe that? Can you believe it? Yes or no? No. But those bulbs still do exist. And because those bulbs were that good, the 3 companies that made it, they realized that once they've sold the bulbs, no one is coming to buy them. So what do? How do we keep our industries running? Because this is when the industrialization had come in. If people had made the bulbs with their own hands, this wouldn't have happened. Because of the industries, they said, how do we keep on making more money? So they said, let's make bulbs which will fuse faster. And that's when we don't call it planned obsolescence anymore, but it's only an upgrade now. I also know that many of these computer companies would have researched the program that you're going to get, the new one here today, or it is going to be launched in a month's time, that they would have had that program 2 years ago. All that technology would be there, but they don't want to launch it then. They don't want to skip that, so that you keep buying and we create more waste. And that's exactly what we've been doing. The rupturing of the well-established socio-economic and environmental balance of tangible and intangible cultural heritage developed over centuries by the traditional societies that Anupama was talking about, and was ruptured because of colonization, and which started the process of unsustainability. India, we may not know, and that has resulted in climate change, natural disasters, beginning of crop failure, etc., etc., etc. This was a result of linear economy. We just take, make, use, and dispose. This is very much the American way of doing things, which has spread all over the world, and we, with more population, we create more waste. This is the current scenario that we see all around, and this is mainly the developing countries, but unfortunately, India is following the same way. And what happens? We have climate change effect. We have earthquakes, forest fires, droughts, floods, new viral fever every few years, increase in cancer, liver, heart, kidney, and diabetes, and other health issues. Can I have some water, please? how we as designers, architects, interior designers, planners and engineers, and consumers contributed to this scenario, especially us architects and interior designers. Do you agree that we have contributed to this or no? Do you think we are responsible for this? At least 50% of all these disasters, architects and interior designers are responsible for. See the unsustainable buildings that have to be recycled after 35, 40 years. Why? Because they are built in cement, concrete, cement. Do you know that a brick that is built with cement mortar, when you are trying to break the wall, that brick that comes out, it will be broken. But if it was built with lime, you will get the whole bricks out. And you can reuse that lime again as sand in your mortar or in your plaster. Cement you cannot use, and lime will not affect the ecology of that place. The cement will. Cement will ruin it. Cement ruins it while making it. Cement is made from lime. Do you know that? A material that can last for thousands of years has been reduced through processing by creating more pollution into something that can only survive for maximum 100 years in laboratory condition. Do you think we should be using it as often? Use it where it's absolutely required. But you don't have to create walls of your houses in concrete, where we see many people do that. We have to use all the materials judiciously, as she has already said that. Then, buildings are a major consumers of natural and man-made resources throughout their life cycle as well, and of extraction, processing raw materials, construction, operation, alteration, and deconstruction. And where do you put all that waste? Just around the villages. All the urban waste is piled up near the villages. So you actually affect the pristine areas in the villages at our cost. At their cost, we are living. We have to understand that. We are ruining our nature, our landscape, where the food is coming from. And that's why we are suffering in health scenario. Current scenario in air-conditioned covered malls are high consumers of electricity. Do you agree to that? Do we need to do that? Especially in our region, where courtyard was the best thing that used to happen, and we could just have passive cooling done the way through physics. And our ancestors understood that physics. And that's the way they designed the buildings. Whichever region it was in, if it was in Ladakh, it was done in a different way. It has to be contextual architecture. Globalization has ruined the world. And 60 to 70% of energy bill of commercial building is on account of air conditioning. Thus, it can be the most significant contributor to CO2 emissions in the operation of buildings. And I don't know if you have heard about sick building syndromes. This is what is happening in West, and they are terming it like that. And these are something that I have picked up from Canadian environmental guidelines. Due to toxic chemicals in buildings and interior materials, VOC and formaldehyde emissions from solid materials such as flooring, fabric, furniture, and furnishings. Most of the things that are around here are creating those emissions. We are sitting on those sofas, we are walking on that floor, and these emit more slowly initially and maintain a low level of emission over a long period of time. Just some of the chemicals, polyurethane, VOCs, the paints are full of these VOCs, semi-volatile organic compounds, SVOCs, they're all used in building materials, interior materials. polychloroprene, heavy metals. And what does it do? They damage our liver, kidney, nervous system. Disorders are created through that. Allergies and increased cancer risks. Don't you see all that happening now? Have you seen your grandmother or your grandparents or people of that generation suffer from such diseases? It might be 2% or 5%. And today we are 50% of people are suffering from that. If you go and find out from the doctors and Vaids, etc. And today the younger generation is suffering more because of this. There are so many heart attacks that you come across in the age group of 25 to 40. Again, this is the dump that we have created just outside Ahmedabad, ruining the villages, ruining the air quality. Again, pollutions created by the cities, whether it's Bangalore or it's Delhi. And then came COVID, which was the best thing to happen for nature. So that it could bounce back. We were trapped in our buildings, and nature revives itself. How many weeks did it take to revive? Anyone can say that? 3 weeks, 4 weeks? So who's going to die? Us. Right? If we don't wake up, if we don't start taking a stand, it's we and your grandchildren. I don't know how many years I'm going to live, but your children and your grandchildren will be cursing you someday for not having the guts to take the steps that you should have taken now. Sorry, I come out very strong, you know. I'm not as soft as her. So when will we learn? Chief Seattle, more than 100 years ago, when he was asked to give a part of his land by American people, he had given a very long speech. But the last para read, only when the last tree has died and the last river has been poisoned and the last fish has been caught, will we realize that we cannot eat money. And this is all about making money at present. Even urbanization. We are urbanizing at the cost of rural areas. And what do the rural areas do? They are producing our food, right? And a lot of other things that we need. So and the projection is 80% of India will become urban. So who will feed us? Have you ever thought of that? You think your urban agriculture will feed all of you? Please wake up. Don't fall into all these marketing things that are going around. And let me tell you, I've talked to various scientists, international scientists, and through their research, they have realized that all the traditional cultures all across the world were sustainable and people were very healthy. Whereas the modern lifestyle is unsustainable, where the percentage of unhealthy people are increasing by the day. And that is why UNESCO had to come up with sustainable development goals for 2030. They have realized this, but still we have a habit. When we had the advantage of being far ahead of the developing nations, because we had this knowledge, we had the traditional knowledge through which we were able to achieve a lot. We had a balanced life. We did not want to learn from the mistakes that they made. I'll just give you an example of Ahmedabad. Ahmedabad was called Manchester of India because of the cotton that grew around and the mills that produced cotton cloth. When the Manchester was dying, Ahmedabad was still going ahead in the same way, that they thought that, okay, this happened to Manchester, but it will not happen to us. They did not learn, and all those mills died a bad death. We have to learn, we have to see, we have to be smart. So UNESCO's sustainable goals are based on cultural, tangible and intangible heritage. They think that that is what will become the driver and enabler for 17 goals and 169 targets that they have set up for 2030. They're talking about culture as an asset for eradication of poverty by linking both its economic and social dimensions. All this, I think whatever she said, I just have it here, that at international level, people are talking about it. Quality education should nurture the appreciation of cultural diversity and provide youth with the knowledge and skills. And today what's happening? All Gujarati schools are dying out, and people want to have only English as the main language. And parents are so proud. Even my driver's children, he is also aiming to put them in English medium schools. What's going to happen? I see the agriculture colleges in Gujarat. Their fees are so high that a farmer cannot afford to send his son to that college. And so the amount of fees that they've paid for, when they come out, they don't want to do farming. They are looking for corporate and other bank jobs. What are we doing? Why do we want to continue the colonial education that came here, of course, to make us their slaves, and we continue to do that? So there are others, that traditional knowledge and skill and can build resilience to counter the effects of natural disaster and climate change. We already have it, and we are losing out on that. Promotion of culture and natural heritage makes cities inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. Promote the intrinsic link between cultural diversity and biodiversity to ensure greater environmental sustainability. This was all part of our traditional lifestyle. The culture and creative industries are powerful drivers for poverty reduction, sustainable economic growth, and employment. So, finally, the West is coming back, to the full circle, sustainable consumption, production, they're all talking about. In the way the nature does, it produces, there are consumers who consume, then it is decomposed and it goes to the soil nutrients, and then again it comes back to us. So now it has come, Traditionally, we were sustainable in all our pursuits and rooted in context with well-established systems in all aspects of our cultural heritage. For example, in health, architecture, planning, agriculture, industry, crafts, and religion. These buildings that have lasted for centuries are much cheaper to renovate. That has been our experience. They are cheaper to renovate than making new buildings, which will not even last for more than 40 years. Even the mud buildings last for centuries. So how did we reach this again? It is colonial rule of 250 years. J.T. Sunderland says that systematically colonial rule destroyed a great industrial and manufacturing nation, having great architecture equal in beauty to any in the world. It had great merchants and businesses, equally great commerce and trade by land and sea, which extended to every known civilized colony. And where was all this produced? It was produced in villages. All our crafts and things that people called India as the Sone ki Chidiya, where they came to loot, was all produced in villages. And at that point in time, we did not have tar roads. But those kings had made arrangements to collect all this, bring it to urban centers or export. This is something that we must know, and all these facts are hidden from us. Traditional lifestyles and building practices are way more sustainable and healthy, and they are based on local climate and natural resources. We have, just 5 minutes, yeah. We have 16 climatic zones, 155 soil types, which has resulted in 21 agroecological regions, 31 food types, traditional food palette, 6,400 communities, 1,618 languages, 16,000 dialects, 31 food types, 27 major festivals, 7 religions, 29 states, and 1 country. We need to respect that and keep that diversity which is required. And this is, from that emerges our traditions. Let me go fast. We need to go back to our roots. Sustainable traditions and systems, Ayurvedic and Unani medical systems, techniques of yoga and pranayam. We found these, at least Ayurvedic, Unani, yoga and pranayam, to be very useful to us during Corona times. Sustainability, as we understand, is sustainability in the context of the country, the earth, and the universe. Questioning our needs, as she said earlier, identifying their optimum levels and taking the design provisions to that level only. Ensuring what is sustainable today remains that way in decades to come, and is holistic in nature, not just in parts. Maximizing the use of traditional wisdom and knowledge, assessing new technologies in the context of India from long-term perspective and development priorities before accepting them for use. We just blindly follow the West. Can we stop doing that? Craftspeople form the second largest employment sector in India, second only to agriculture. 1 in every 200 Indians is an artisan. We have 20 million craft practitioners today working in huge range of materials and technologies. And they are our assets, and we see them as liabilities. Like Laila Tayyabji says that while economists and activists agonize over unemployment, carbon footprints, and the depletion of natural energy resources, craft is an obvious alternative. Craft is one of the few professions that is a direct result of natural environment in which it is practiced. The existence of the surrounding natural materials, stone, wood, metal, clay, cotton, cane, and bamboo, is the impetus of most traditional crafts. So all I will say is, I've not shown any of our project, but this is an assessment we had made about 4 or 5 years ago. Impact of only one architectural practice with 2 decolonized minds. Benefited directly and indirectly more than 40 lakh users. Through various policies and projects, impacted more than 40,000 artisans, arts and craftspeople. Tell me, each one of you can do this, right? So are we ready to learn and go back to our roots? So what do? We have choices to be made. Choices we have and choices we need to make. And we need to take the decisions which will make our country most sustainable. And we don't have options anymore. The earth is reaching a point where we need to face the reality. So all one is saying is take responsibly, design responsibly, make responsibly, sell responsibly, use responsibly, then reuse, recycle, reduce consumption, and replenish the environment and earth. And there are so many craftspeople who want to teach, but there are very few students. Unfortunately, they wonder if their next generation will also be able to carry on their knowledge. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ms. Parul Zaveri. It was a beautiful conversation. Kindly stay back as we would like to felicitate you now. And for the felicitation, we would like to call upon
the wonderful Mr. Kozema Chitalwala, and Mr. Sachin Motwani from Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for the woman who has raised Citadels from shambles. Thank you, ma'am, for sharing your glorious years of experience with us. Thank you.